Welcome to this GiftWorks video. My name is Steve Faithful, and in this video, I'm going to be providing the answer to a frequently asked question that we receive when people are importing information into GiftWorks. And the frequently asked question is this. I am importing from a Microsoft Access database. What is the best way to import my information? Well, people who are using Microsoft Access databases to import into GiftWorks, there's some things that you're going to want to consider in terms of importing. And I know some of the questions we receive are regarding sequence, meaning what order should I import my information? Or they asked, do I need to build a query to combine all my information to import it into GiftWorks? Well, let me try to answer this question in a number of different ways. Let me jump over to GiftWorks and we'll try to answer this. And let me first open an Access database that can illustrate some of this information or some of this stuff. Let me quick size it to the screen. And so I'm going to open up an Access database. I'll call it import.mdb. It's a simple Access database. I'm using Access 2003. And you'll notice I have under my tables, I have three tables. I have donor data, which contains basic information about my donors. So each one has an ID, and then each one has some of the donor information. Then I also have donation information. So for each of the donors, I have 2 donations in there for donor 1 and 1 donation in there for donor 2. And this is probably mimics or is close in some way to the information you have. And I also have this more donation information table, which is empty, but it could be some additional information that you have. And many people ask us, what's the best way to get this information over? Should I build a query that combines all this information into a single table that can, or a single query that can be imported, or can I do it individually? Well, the great, or at least one of the ways that I can answer this question is, first of all, consider what version of GiftWorks you're using. If you're using GiftWorks 2008 or GiftWorks 2006, 2 previous versions, then the best approach may be to combine them into a single query. So I have this query called My Donation Data. If I design this query real quick, you'll see it's a simple join between the donor data and the donation information, so that my output simply looks like this: my donor name and my donation information. If you're using 2008 or GiftWorks 2006, like I said, the best way is probably to create a query, and that's because of some of the limitations regarding updating existing donors. And I'll show you, it'll be easier to show you when I show you what you can do with GiftWorks 2010, but suffice it to say it's probably better if you're using a prior version to create a single query that contains all this information. If you're using GiftWorks 2010, then the answer is it doesn't really matter the order, the sequence, or the way in which you approach it. Well, let me go into GiftWorks and show it to you. I'm going to use GiftWorks 2010, and I can show you both ways using GiftWorks 2010. So the first thing I'm going to do is sign in. Let me just empty this database real quick, and just to start with a blank database, just delete all the donors that are in here. I'm going to go start an import, and I'm going to import a file. I'm going to choose an Access database. Find an import file. I'm going to choose this import.mdb, this file I was just showing you. I'm going to click the next button, and you'll see at the bottom I can choose either between tables or queries. Both tables and queries are listed in this. You'll see that I'm looking at this donation information table or the donor data table, and then I have the query like my donation data, and then Steve's information. So there's a number of different things I can choose from, but I'm going to choose, first of all, the way I'm going to do this one is I'm going to simply import the donor data first, and then I'm going to import the donation data. If you're using GiftWorks 2010, this probably, not that either way is necessarily better than the other, both approaches are valid, whether you combine them into a single query or do the individual tables themselves. I'm going to do the individual tables themselves because it's a little bit more advanced. So I'm going to click on Next. I've chosen this donor data table that I'm going to import. One of the key things that I want to make sure that I do is I'm going to disregard these for now in terms of my first import, for importing my first table. These don't really matter, but we are going to be focusing on this updating existing donors on a subsequent import. So just to bring the donor information in, all I'm going to do is click on Next. I'm going to map, and one of the key things that I need to do is I'm going to bring this ID field, which is my unique identifier in my Access database. I'm going to bring that into a custom field, and I'll call it My Old System ID. Now, I've created this already, so this My Old System ID, I'm going to map that to the ID so that I make sure that when I import these donors, I have their unique identifier so that I can use it at a later time to update their information. So I'm going to go ahead and then map first, middle, and last name. Last name. I can map their address information, state, and then postal code. And I'll just ignore everything else. So I'm just going to basically bring in the base donor information, their name and their address. Click on Next. Click on Next. Do a quick test import. You'll see that it's going to import 2 donors, Steve and Dave. Click on Next. I'm going to actually complete the import. And I've now imported this information. If I go to my donor dashboard and look at Steve, you'll see that one of the key pieces of information on the Details tab is if I scroll down, I have this My Old System ID. Steve's identification number is 1, Dave's is number 2. So, and I also see I imported my base address information, but I have no donations for either Steve or Dave. So now, to bring in the remainder of the donation information from my Access database, I'm going to go back, do another import, choose my Access database again, click on Next. Now, I'm going to leave the donation table here, because that's the one I want to import from. You'll notice all I have is my donor ID, my date, my amount. I'm going to click on Next. And now this is where this option at the bottom comes into play. I'm going to choose the fields that I want to use for matching donors, and what I'm doing is I'm instructing GiftWorks to make sure that I use this ID, the donor ID, from my Access database to match up with my old system ID that I brought into my custom field. So what I'm doing is instructing GiftWorks to make sure that when you're looking for a donor, you match on the old donor ID from my Access database to the system ID or the old system ID that's contained in my custom field. Because I'm going to match those up, and I'm also going to choose, I know that all my donations go to donors, so I'm going to simply say if I don't find a match, which I don't expect to, but I would ignore the row of import data. So I'm going to click on Next. Now that I've set up my matching, which ensures that my donation, the donor ID from my donation table matches up to the donor that's in GiftWorks. And I'm going to simply, I can ignore this field. I can ignore this field, and I'm simply going to match up donation 1 date and donation 1 amount. I'm going to click on Next. Next. I'll do a test import. I'll see I have some information coming in. It's a little cryptic because I don't see the donor names because I didn't map any donor information. I just did IDs, so I see their IDs. I'm going to complete the import, say yes. I'm expecting that Steve should have 2 donations and Dave have 1. Click on donors. And when I'm done, I can go and look in Steve. I'll see that his donations have been imported into his donor information. He has 2 donations, and then Dave has 1. So, and just to finish off, if I go back to import and import an Access database, if I wanted to, instead of using those individual steps, and especially if I'm using GiftWorks 2006 or 2008, I might just come to my donation data. I'll have the donor name with all their donations. I could simply click Next, say map the name information first, middle, and last, and then the donation information, and then once I map this information, I could go ahead and then import it, and that information will have been brought into GiftWorks. So whether I do it, if I have GiftWorks 2010, I have a little bit more flexibility on how I want to do it. It's also a little bit more, I'd say a little bit more reliable because you're doing some guaranteed matching based on unique IDs. But if you're using GiftWorks 2008 or 2006, or even GiftWorks 2010, you can also use this approach where you're using a one query and combining all the information. So I hope this has been helpful to see how you can have a successful import using Microsoft Access and GiftWorks, and I trust this video has been helpful.